around you that's crooked.
Yeah, maybe so.
Perfect way to start, guys. Hello again, everyone, or hello for the first time, everyone, and welcome to Best Darn Everything. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and this is probably going to be a bit of a train wreck because we don't know what we're doing. We're making this up as we go. It's the first time we're trying something new, but we usually cover The Simpsons. Today, we are covering Die Hard, and when I say we, joining me, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I kind of want to just not talk and see if anybody can figure out who each of us is, because we're just like the three generic white dudes that are talking about.
And like, hey, I'm the one that doesn't have a beard.
Or glasses in this case.
You guys are both with beard and glasses. You kind of fucked that up.
And Toby's got a magnificent beard. I'm kind of giving away which person I am if I say Toby over there, but mine's starting to get there a little bit. But we have time to talk about that maybe in a future episode. This is Best Darn Everything. I need to throw it back that way? Yeah, that way. To the man, the myth. What did I write down? The Mr. Grinder? No, Mr. Grinch. Oh, that guy over there.
That's fair. That's fair. And joining us as well today, returning guest of both Best Darn Diddley and also the former Mr. Most Days Off Loves Everything, which is now pretty much the show. So glad you could join us here tonight. Welcome back, or welcome to, I'm going to say back a lot probably, but just welcome to for the first time, Toby Von Doom. How are you today, Toby?
I'm doing good. You said we should do a podcast. It'll be fun to do a podcast. There it is. There it is.
Beautiful, man.
You used up all of Die Hard knowledge in that one sentence.
And that is literally all Toby will have to say for the rest of the show. He's going to sit there and drink his Dickies cup, I'm assuming. I don't know.
It's just water. Nothing fun in it.
Nothing fun. That's cool. So yeah, guys. Over there. We're going to talk about Die Hard today, and I'm going to start a timer now because I made the mistake of saying I wanted to try to make this show a nice tight one, but, we'll see what happens. Richie, I'm actually going to start with you instead of our guest. First of all, because this is the first time we are doing this, and second of all, because you are probably the biggest Die Hard fan that I know personally. I actually suggested this one. We were talking about it, but I just want to reaction when I was like, hey man, you want to talk to Die Hard?
Pretty much the same reaction when you said, hey, do you want to do a Simpsons podcast? And I was like, I have to watch this thing that I've seen like 100 times and actually take notes and not just sit down and enjoy it. Oh, fuck you, Miles. And then I sat down and took notes while I enjoyed it. So my initial reaction was like, okay, cool. Something Christmas related. It'll probably release on
to get that in early.
Yeah. I don't care what Patsy or anybody else says. It is a Christmas movie. We can get into that here in a little bit. I know that debate's that's like pineapple on pizza debate. So like it'll be pretty split on that.
So you're saying the people that don't think it should go on a pizza are as dumb as the people that don't think Die Hard is a Christmas movie?
You took the words right out of my brain, Miles. I'm glad we're on the same side of the fence for at least two items in our lives.
First two times we've ever agreed on anything.
Exactly. But no, I was happy to talk about this one. Just a little backstory. I know the first Die Hard movie I actually saw was the second one during Christmas time. My parents showed it to me, and like halfway through the movie, they were like, yeah, that's his famous line, yippee-ki-yay, from the first movie. I'm like, you've seen that, right? And I was like, no. So then we immediately turned around and watched the first one. And then every year after that, my dad and I would watch the first one around Christmas time. So for me, it is a Christmas movie. I don't really see much debate in it. It's full of Christmas music. The main hero and main villain whistle Christmas tunes in the show. Everything around it is Christmas related. So hey, nice.
I even came prepared.
I wish it said ho ho ho. Now I have a machine gun backwards on that.
I have a bunch of pins on here that are all Christmas or Hanukkah or other this time of year positive belief type of thing. So
happy holidays.
It might say ho ho on here. Yeah.
But yeah, that's my Die Hard backstory. So I also think the fourth one is definitely a 4th of July movie. So there you go.
Completely reasonable argument. Cannot even debate. The only thing I will say is that Die Hard isn't the most Christmas movie in the franchise, because Die Hard 2 is way more of a Christmas movie than Die Hard 1 is.
But if they both take place during Christmas.
Yeah, but like, I mean, like Die Hard 2, in my opinion, is like, oh, people are debating if Die Hard 1 is a movie, is a Christmas movie. Some people are like, is it even a movie? But they're debating, is it a Christmas movie? So the people that made Die Hard 2 were like, we're going to make it clear on this one.
Yeah. You can see the train of thought there.
So going the opposite direction, Toby, I talked to you about Die Hard, and you're like, "Oh God, please don't make me podcast with you again. I do this for you all the time. For the love of God, do you not have other friends that want to talk about anything?" And you know the answer to that is no. So here we are. Yeah. No, honestly, man, I'm really glad you're here for personal reasons. You have been a guest on Best Darn Diddly, and Richie and I both have had a great time talking to you about The Simpsons. You largely influenced the show early on because my dumb ass didn't even think of watch the director's commentary until you fucking said it, and then I'm like, I should really probably do that. That seems like a thing that I should probably do from now on, and I have.
Maybe I shouldn't have tried to show you up, but I was trying to come in there with some knowledge and
you did,
add to the show.
You did so good. It was literally format changing. And
you
then
really touched him, Toby.
And then you were my most prolific guest on Mr. Most Days Off Loves Everything. We had a schedule. You were coming on every 3 weeks because you happened to be off every third Friday.
Yeah,
and that show I was having to do in a specific time slots. So it worked out really well because I just had I knew every 3 weeks I was going to get to have a fun conversation with you about something we both love. And that more than your love of Die Hard, which I think most people to some extent love Die Hard. Even people are like, it's not really my thing. I only watch it once a year around Christmas. But it's still, I wanted you to be here tonight just because I think it'd be fun for you to be a part of the birth of this show. And I hope that you will also be a returning guest, of course. But and then also you have the unique perspective that you have recently not only played, but reviewed the Die Hard video games on your podcast, the Secret Levels podcast, which happens to be the only podcast Richie actually listens to, for what it's worth. I don't know if you know that fun trivia fact, but Richie doesn't listen to any podcast other than yours.
I figured he finally gave up because it's just dick jokes. It's the same dick jokes over and over. Same format.
You found your target audience.
Hey, yes.
It took a Richard.
Yeah. So we did cover the Die Hard game last Christmas actually because it's a Christmas movie. I mean, so we thought that's a Christmas game. We played the NES version, which. I don't remember what the review exactly was on that we gave it, overall, if it's worth playing. I think it's worth playing. The only problem is it doesn't really give you directions on what to do, and you have a time limit, and there's 3 different endings. So depending on how fast you beat the game, you get a different ending, and you just have to kind of explore. It's kind of hard if you don't have instructions. If you would have rented that game from Blockbuster or something back in the day, you'd have just been like, no idea what to do.
And I think I remember that one, wasn't the health bar your feet? Because it was how much glass you were stepping on or something like that.
Yeah, there's something really weird with the health bar. But yeah, there's broken glass everywhere.
I actually did rent that game from Blockbuster, and I remember hating it. It was I loved Die Hard when I was a kid, but could not figure out at all what the hell and I would just die every time I walked into a room.
Hard.
It's cool because there you go. You get to climb through the vents. I mean, you get to do almost everything from the movie. There's even a spot where if you do everything correctly, you can jump off the roof and with the fire hose. And
oh, wow.
I mean, it shows like a cut scene, but it's still really cool that you can pretty much you can recreate the entire movie for the most part.
It's really 8-bit form.
In 8-bit form. Yeah.
Really cool.
If you squint real hard and use your imagination, yes, you can recreate the movie.
And when you do, what? Actually, we're going to come back to it. I want to talk more about the video games because there's more than just the one. But before we get any further, Richie, how about you? I'll let you handle this aspect of it. But how about you give the most simple synopsis of Die Hard that you possibly can, just in case there's somebody at this point that somehow is still listening 8 minutes into this that's what the hell's Die Hard?
Well, I want to take you back to a magical time, the 80s, where California was up and coming, and it was a hot place to be. New York was slimy and dirty and full of mutagens that turned turtles into ninjas, or ninjas into turtles, or a combination of the two. But in California, they don't fly for that. And Mr. John McClane goes there to reconnect with his wife at a Christmas party, but he picked the wrong Christmas party. There's a couple of German cowboys saying yippee-ki-yay after the American does it. There's a lot of Western jokes, and then maybe some terrorists die. But maybe they're not the terrorists. Maybe the Americans the terrorists. Who knows? We live in an equal opportunity world right now, so it's not the 80s anymore. And people that do drugs try to talk to terrorists like they're just another sale. So,
and the thing about Die Hard is it's actually not an original story. It's actually based on a book. I had that up earlier. Anybody happen to have that written down? What book that is?
Oh, I remember that. I from our fun facts on that, because we do a little fun facts portion, and we did a bunch of fun facts for this movie.
It's nothing lasts forever by Roderick Thorpe.
See, there's another really, maybe one of the video games had a really goofy title. I'll look that up while we're talking. But there was some really funny stuff about like, it's called like The Tower or something like that. Shit, I'm sorry. I should have come more prepared. if it wasn't last minute,
you on the
Miles.
It's fine. No, it's cool. So that's Die Hard 1 in a nutshell, what Richie just proposed. It all takes place in the Naga. What's the name of the building? Nagasaki?
You just butchered it, and now you made me forget some Nakatomi.
Nakatomi. The Nakatomi Tower. And then we have Die Hard 2, which is very much based on the success of Die Hard, which Die Hard 1 was actually kind of a weird movie in the sense that it had been floating around Hollywood for a really long time. It had gone through a bunch of A-list actors, including names like Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But eventually it got around to someone who really wanted an everyday guy, like somebody that looked like they could just be an average Joe type. And that's how they actually got to Bruce Willis, who is largely known for his comedic television roles, specifically on Moonlighting, before he actually became an action star as we know him today. Die Hard was him getting his toe dipped into that world. And actually, kind of a fun fact I learned about it just reading on it today. Whenever they first put the movie poster out for Die Hard, the one that we know today features the Nakatomi. Did I say that right? Nakatomi Tower with Bruce Willis's face like superimposed on it. The original poster actually just had the tower because they didn't want people to think of Bruce Willis when they went to see this movie, because they would assume it would be like a comedy and they wouldn't think of it as like a tough guy action movie, which is what they were going for, especially in the 80s.
That's really
well.
Funny.
Also, they talk about it on the movies that made us on Netflix too. I remember watching that last year, where they talked about like how when they first played the trailers for Die Hard, that like the way Bruce Willis was talking in the previews just made everybody go like, that's not an action star. Like, this isn't going to work. He's like crying and screaming and stuff. And the reason that I like it so much is it's the Peter Parker effect. It's not Sylvester Stallone or, Arnold Schwarzenegger or Steven Seagal, where like they don't even get hurt every time they get punched. It's Peter Parker, where there's just an everyday guy that's struggling a little bit, thrown in a situation where he's having to overcome it. And yeah, there's some over the top stuff. There has to be, because that's just not how the real world works if that was to actually happen. But
yeah, usually we just swing on a web from our 9-to-5 humdrum jobs and just don't have to deal with any supervillains.
Yep. But no, it's when the everyday man has to step up and like do something, even though he doesn't want to do it, makes it enjoyable. Like his sarcasm in the movie is kind of what makes you like, it is what makes you like him and make you want him to succeed. Because this movie has some very good villains in it where like you kind of want to see the villains succeed. So you have to have a good enough hero, a likable enough hero that makes you want him to win, excuse me.
He's almost like an anti-hero though.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's cocky, he's kind of a dick, and
Wait, are you talking about just Bruce Willis right now, or
yeah, Bruce Willis? Yeah. Oh yeah, Bruce, yes.
Because I was going to talk about that.
This is the Kevin Smith podcast.
John McCain, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, and Bruce Willis, he does have that. Every character that he plays, he kind of always has that like cocky, smug kind of like Hudson Hawk. He's cocky, like in what's
Fifth Element,
the whole 9 yards. What is that one movie?
Oh
with,
yeah, you had the whole 9 yards.
the whole 9 yards, and then the whole.
There's two of them. That's why I didn't remember.
The whole 10 yards.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't watch the other 7. Right.
Good mapping.
Yeah, whatever. But he always has that kind of smug character, but it really pays off in this movie because he's like you said, the villains are kind of cool, and then you got this like he's just a dick, and you're like, yeah, and he's an everyday man, and you're just like, yeah.
Richie touched on it a little bit with just some of his like quipping throughout his synopsis, but there is like an element of taking the like gruff New Yorker and putting him in like the, I guess for lack of a better word, softer LA, like the setting that they're in.
Fish out of water setting.
Fish out of water 100%, because he's dealing with a lot of like Californian yuppies when he's used to being a very clearly dirty, grimy street cop in New York.
And it just kind of stacks the odds against them too a little bit more when you do that.
Well, and I think when you hear New York street cop, you're like either one of the people who are like, they're a hero, or you're like, yeah, that's one like dirty motherfucker right there. Like, it's not like a clean hero coming in, as Toby essentially said.
But I think that would be boring though. Like in this movie, 100%. I don't think it would work at all.
I agree. Like, I think that's where a lot of the fun of the conflict of the story comes from.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. So Die Hard is amazing and a Christmas movie, as we've established. But
I'm glad we got somebody from another.
I'm so glad that we have a counter opinion here. I did. To be fair, they can vouch for me. I openly invited multiple people that have the opinion that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. And that is why this because
they know they have no leg to stand on. They decided not to show up.
Yeah, they're cowards. They're cowards with no backbone and clearly no real arguments.
Christmas spirit.
Patty cakes, you know who we're talking about.
Do you think Batman Returns is a Christmas movie? Because I do.
Christmas movie. Yes,
right?
It's like that movie reeks of Christmas. Like it's like that movie is to Christmas as what Halloween 3 is to Halloween. Like where it's just like it looks like somebody vomited Christmas on the screen.
Yes. So I mean, I feel like
DeVito does.
I mean that in a good way. I love that movie.
I just when people start this argument up, it's like, well, I mean, what makes it not a Christmas movie? Like the whole setting, the whole plot of the movie is, hey, we're going to a Christmas party. If it was just a generic party, if it was a New Year's party, like, and you still saw Christmas trees, I don't know.
I'm with you.
I don't know what point I was about to make.
I'm sorry, Patty Cakes. We're like breaking all sorts of kayfabe right now. I don't even know what to do. Patrick Rahal, author of How Much Do You Tip an Exorcist? There you go. Cheap plug since I'm about to talk shit about you. I'm pretty sure his argument is that there is actually no such thing as a Christmas movie. But that is clearly asinine.
I just watched Jingle All the Way earlier today. What is that?
That is exactly that. Well, I guess to be fair, that might just be a consumerism movie. I don't know, but that's a capitalist movie. Anyway, back to Die Hard. I've been wanting to talk about the sequels, and I'm glad that we keep getting sidetracked because it's all been interesting. But I do want to talk about the sequels because there's a lot of them at this point, and some of them are actually pretty good. I like the second Die Hard a lot. It has the villain is the Grim Reaper from Bill and Ted, which is super cool. It's got John Leguizamo in it in like the most random like one-line role ever. He's one of like the henchmen of like the bad guys. He says one thing and then he dies, and it's just like, was that John Leguizamo? And you're like, oh shit, yeah, it was. And again, it's a big time Christmas movie, lots of fun, good action, but it's largely criticized for being exactly the same as the first movie, just in an airport instead of a tower, which you can kind of see. But I really love Die Hard 3, where we get John McClane and Sam Jackson's character. I think his name is Zeus, if I remember correctly. And they're like basically having to play Simon Says with Alan Rickman's brother, Hans Gruber's brother, I should say, from the first movie, putting him on like this whole chase. And I learned this most incredible fun fact about that movie today. The writer of the third movie, the script largely had to do with them robbing the Federal Reserve. And the FBI actually investigated the writer of this film because the details he had about the Federal Reserve were unusually knowledgeable, as they put it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He either did like a ridiculous amount of research or he guessed very well at how like the situation works. Yeah. After that, Richie, you already brought up Live Free or Die Hard, and then there's Die Hard Another Day or something. I stopped watching at that one, honestly. It was bad.
I haven't seen the fifth one all the way through since it came out in theaters, I think.
I've never seen the first one all the way through. I tried to watch it, and I like caught most of it, and I was just like, ugh. Bad
I won't lie. I like Live Free or Die Hard, even though it's way too over the top. But I think the Justin Long factor and the Mary Elizabeth Winstead factor are really good. Well, and
Kevin Smith is in that one too.
Yeah, he is.
See, I didn't see the fifth one, but the only thing I remember in the fourth one was obviously Kevin Smith, and then the helicopter scene where the helicopter, I don't remember exactly what was happening.
The helicopter with the car. I was out of bullets.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's all I remember, and I just remember being like, "This is the fucking most ridiculous installment of this series," and like I think it just completely, I blocked it out, and I was just like, "All right, this doesn't exist in my universe." Just the first.
Toby, you're not watching these movies for factual, like step-by-step instructions on how to take down terrorists in the New York City block.
I'm one of those internet people that's like, if they make an extra movie and it fails,
it ruins the entire franchise. Why
didn't it fail after the second movie then?
Fair enough.
So I do want to say, though, that the other big thing about the fourth one was that it had a major change to the franchise. It was rated PG-13. Mm-hmm. That was weird. I mean, John McClane is a gritty New York cop. That's a big part of him. I mean, in the third movie, we got all sorts of hard language and violence, and the first two as well. But the third one specifically, I remember being incredibly vulgar in a lot of ways, and still really good, but just definitely not pushing the lines of PG-13.
Have you ever seen Die Hard on cable?
Where they dub it weird?
Yippee-ki-yay, Mother Clucker?
Falcon, I think it is.
I thought there was one that said Mother Clucker or something like that. Something like
I think they did that in the third one.
I just watched a compilation of I didn't watch them recently, but I watched the Die Hard. There's a YouTube video of bad Die Hard dubbing or whatever, and one of them in the second, the villain is named Falcon. So he's like, "Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon." And it's so bad. And the guy's voice doesn't even sound like Bruce Willis at all. It's terrible.
Man, but that's what they did with the gunshot in the fourth movie too. Like in the Live Free or Die Hard, they have the actual rated R version you can watch on the DVD, and even that, it's still muffled by the gunshot at the end.
You hear it, but there's a big gun shooting it as he says it. Yeah. Wasn't that Timothy Olyphant was the villain in that one?
He was. I liked him.
Wasn't there some kind of weird controversy or something where they edited out the sign? Or am I
in Die Hard 3?
What the third one we're talking about?
Yeah.
In Die Hard 3. Sorry, yeah. I thought
I was like, Miles,
Die Hard 3. I mean, they obviously had to have edited that one for television.
Let's see. I'm just gonna write Die Hard 3, the sign, and see what pops up on Google. Okay, so. Okay, apparently, I don't know if these are just edited for the internet, but it says I hate everybody.
Yeah, honestly that I think is the version that I've seen a TV edit of where it says I hate everyone or everybody.
You got to watch wearing that sign around these parts.
I want a T-shirt that just says "I hate everybody"
I want
like
a
that.
Shirt that says "You gotta watch wearing a sign like that around these parts." All right. So back on track though. Sequels. Richie, you clearly like the fourth one. The fifth one you don't acknowledge.
No, I acknowledge the fifth one. I I felt like that one was a little redundant by that time, and that it was like you've seen all this stuff before. Like unless they actually kill him off, there's not really a reason to go through this process. And they keep doing that thing where like they start hinting that the husband and wife are going to get back together. John and Holly are going to work it out, and then by the next movie, it's like, well, for tension purposes, they're no longer a thing. Yeah, because we can't hire the actress anymore.
Yeah, we've lost contact with her or whatever because it's been a long time.
Yeah.
It's actually, though, there was a really long time in between the third movie and the fourth movie. It was like mid-90s to 2007. I think there was a 12-year break-ish, somewhere around there. But a large part of the reason for that was the popularity of Die Hard spawned a bunch of what are referred to as Die Hard knockoffs. And some of those are like big-time movies that had theatrical releases and a lot of buzz about them. Even movies like, I was surprised that made the list, Air Force One, largely considered to be Die Hard on a plane. Under Siege, which is a Steven Seagal movie that also got a sequel, took place on a boat. And that one specifically, Speed was another one on a bus, which is one I absolutely love. But the one on a boat is actually interesting because there is a whole lot of information, and I was a little bit confused by some of it, and I was reading it very quickly. But basically, there was at one point a draft of a script that was Die Hard on a boat that did not get made because Under Siege took place, which was the Steven Seagal movie. And then the script that was originally the next Die Hard film actually got repurposed into Speed 2, which is originally that was essentially going to be a hijacked cruise ship was going to be the original plot of Die Hard 3 before the Die Hard 3 that we know and love came to be.
I mean, there's a boat scene in Die Hard 3, really so funny. There you go. They tied it back.
They brought it back together. Die Hard 3, of course, did include the villain that was seeking revenge for the villain that we have yet to talk about yet, and that is OG.
There's one more movie you forgot to bring up, the Die Hard inspired Matterhorn, starring Vincent Chase.
Go! Yeah, you're not wrong. I forgot that one. That's a big one.
There you go. All right, sorry. Back to Hans Gruber.
You're okay. Hans Gruber, played by Alan Rickman. Another thing that I'm always shocked, I've heard this before like a dozen times, but it's a piece of that trivia that like I'm always like, it feels fresh every time I hear it just because of how like surprising it is. And that is that Die Hard was Alan Rickman's very first like theatrical film role. Up until that point, he was a theater actor, and this was his first time on the big screen. And what a role and what a job he did with that.
I still I know all the HP fans are gonna blow their tops, but like he's always Hans Gruber first on my list. He always will be Hans Gruber first.
That's fair, honestly.
Maybe even like Galaxy Quest might even be up there too, just because he's so freaking funny.
Oh yeah, but you gotta include Galaxy Quest not Galaxy Quest, Hitchhiker's Guide.
Well, that too, but I'm talking about Galaxy Quest.
Oh,
that's what I was thinking.
Hitchhiker's Oh my,
he's so great
good at that. Yeah.
For the entirety of the time after Die Hard, anytime you saw his name in a movie because of Die Hard, you're like, oh, I'm gonna like this just because he's in it. Like he just carried that bravado with him. And I hinted at it earlier. There's very few villains in movies or shows that I actually like root for, and Hans Gruber is one of them. Like he's so sophisticated and smart, and everything he says is smart, and he's planned every like detail out. He wants the FBI to show up, but he's not letting anybody know that. Like he really carefully thought this through, and like admit it, guys, there's a big part of you that's like, I want to see him succeed. Like I want him to pull this off because I think he can do it.
It gets into, I think it's clear we're spoiling this movie at this point, but
it's a few years
threshold
old
of like window of time that's reasonable.
6 months in 1988.
I will say, as good of a death scene as it is, and it is an incredible death scene, it might have been a mistake to kill Hans Gruber because he was an incredible villain, and I would have liked to see him maybe get arrested. Would you not watch I would like to see a movie where Hans Gruber escapes from prison.
No, that would just taint the character. That would taint the character.
Okay. You're glad he died.
Yeah, well, and I also like they said that was
he got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 treatment.
There you go. Yep. Right off the roof. But that was actually his actual like facial response to them dropping him too, which I thought was really, really cool that got saved in the actual movie.
That's a fun story too. And like that's another thing that's compounded by the fact that it's his very first acting role on a theater or not in a theater, I'm sorry, on like a theatrical release. And like, so he has like all his trust in this director who's like, yeah, we're totally going to drop you on this rig into this thing on 3. And then they dropped him on 2 intentionally so that they would get his natural reaction. Like that was a calculated and planned out thing that the director and stunt coordinator did. They're like, we're going to drop you on 3. And then in the middle of their count, they dropped the wire so that they would catch his natural reaction on film. And in addition to that, like, not only did they catch that moment, but they shot it in slow motion. And that's why you're able to get like each like individual, I think it was 300 frames per second, where you can see like the little tiny muscles and like, it's Alan Rickman at that point. It's still Hans Gruber, but that's Alan Rickman's actual reaction in that fall.
It just adds to that. But besides that, great performance overall. You got to love him. I love the whole scene when he's talking to is it Nakatomi? Is he the guy? Oh my gosh. I can't believe I'm doing this right now.
Nakatomi is the name of the tower.
Yeah, I know, but I thought it was named after the guy. I wasn't even Takagi. It's Takagi. That's his name. But like that whole interrogation scene, and he's like, well, you're just going to have to shoot me. And he's like, all right, bam. Like,
he's one of those, like, he's not over the top evil. He's not like maniacal in any way. He is just like like very cut and dry almost even. Like, it's like just, yeah, like you said, it's like, okay, fine, bang. And it just like, it doesn't even faze him.
And when like he runs into Bruce Willis on the roof when he's looking for the detonator, and he asks him what his name is, and he actually knows the staff because he gives them Bill Clay, and it's actually one of the workers' names. Like, he was very, very well organized in it. And I just, man, it's like he was one step ahead almost the entire time. This stupid jerk just kept messing up all his plans. Those darn kids.
And he puts on an American accent in that scene too, which again comes from his background in theater acting. He was very good at changing his accent to fit roles. That scene specifically too, the one you just brought up where they meet, I learned some stuff about that scene as well today. The director decided that because they wanted it to have like a nervous tension between the actors in that scene, that they did absolutely no rehearsals of that scene at all. So the very first, I don't know if it was actually the first take, but it was within the first couple of takes is what we get in the movie with absolutely no rehearsals. And Alan Rickman that was also the first scene that was shot with his character. So that there would be like this real, like him and Bruce Willis would have absolutely no comfort at this point with each other. It would be like very, very organic feeling. And I think they pulled it off because that scene, like when you watch it with the audience perspective where we know that he's really the bad guy, it's still fun to kind of see like the nervousness. Because if I remember, I didn't actually watch the movie, I'll be honest, like really recently. I have seen it within the last like year because I watched it at Christmas time. But it's Alan Rickman's like really up close to the camera, and then Bruce Willis is kind of standing behind him, and you get like the close up of Rickman's face as he's like talking to him, pretending to be an American named Bill, whatever it was.
Clay.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought that was a cool way to get some extra life out of your actors, some extra emotion out of your actors.
Hey, I have so earlier you were saying that the movie was based off of Nothing Lasts Forever. That is actually inspired off of Towering Inferno, and that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Now, but I also came across some other things I wanted to get in real quick because these are really funny. The names in other countries of Die Hard. So Die Hard, this is the first one. We're starting with the first one. In Germany, it's called Die Slowly. When it's translated, obviously. Greece, it's Very Hard to Die. Norway, it's called Action Skyscraper. And Poland, it's called The Glass Trap.
That's kind of cool, actually.
And because, not all of them are set in a glass building, I think that the names, like, afterwards, they just kept calling them like the Glass Trap 2 and stuff like that. So Glass Harder. So Die Hard 2, Die Harder, is The Jungle 2, Red Alert in Spain. That's the only one it gives right there for that one. And then Die Hard.
Jungle, man. That is an absolute jungle.
Oh, see, I think one of them's called The Jungle, and that's that, but it's not showing a bunch of them. So Die Hard with a Vengeance. In Denmark, it's called Die Hard.
I love it. That should have been an actual
bad sci-fi movie.
That should have been the
that sounds
actual
like
name.
one of those like shark versus octopus type of things.
Hold on. There's two more that I got to tell you. So Live Free or Die Hard in Hungary. Hungary? Whatever. Yeah. It's Die Hard 4.0, the most expensive of your life. That's what it's. I mean, it's on the internet. And then the last one is A Good Day to Die Hard, which is
Lithuanian.
I don't even know what this fucking. What I don't even think I've heard of that.
Geometry clearly isn't your strong.
It's called. Listen, this one is called Tough Nut to Crack. A Great Day to Die.
Again, Christmas movie. Nutcracker.
There's a lot more because, like I said, I remember the jungle or whatever it was, or the glass trap. One of them has like multiple sequels to where it doesn't make sense anymore, and it's really funny.
So on that same note, I know that in I want to say it's Japan, on the first movie, like you know how like movies will have like the tagline on the poster. In the first film for the Japanese version, on the poster it says "He has no shoes," and in the second movie, it says, "This time he has shoes."
That's a great marketing strategy there.
Why is that the most important part of the film that it had to go on the poster?
Because he's inside a giant building. You have to take your shoes off.
And it's like, I mean, like that would make more sense if that were the tagline for the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. Like that I would get. It's like, oh, he's going to be a lot faster this time. Yeah. I did.
You need that poster for the second one. That is a fantastic poster. This time
he has shoes.
Great.
So we've talked a lot about the sequel. We've talked about some of the spin-offs and whatnot, or the copycat.
Did you hear that the shoe factory burned down?
Oh, geez.
Millions of souls were lost.
I was going to say it has to have something to do with souls. Nice. Well done.
I was just waiting. I wasn't even going to acknowledge it until he said it, but that was
one
good.
dad joke.
I like it.
All right. I want to talk more about the video games. That's where we were at. So you talked a little bit about the NES game, notoriously hard, a little bit confusing. I wanted to talk about the arcade game, which I do believe was released on the Saturn, the Dreamcast, possibly the PlayStation. But it was called Die Hard Trilogy. And I don't know, Toby, if you're going to know this place. Richie, I know you will. In the like Fort Worth area, North Fort Worth area, suburbs or whatever, there used to be a place called Tornado Terry's. It was a free play arcade before that was a thing. That was back in like the age of arcades. Where you'd like literally put like a quarter in the slot. This was like mind blowing because it was one of those places where you paid like a cover fee and you just played unlimited games. I actually don't even know that they were open for business. The only time I ever went was when you'd get those like rewards at school for having really good attendance in like middle school or something like that. And I always had the thing where I would inevitably go and hang out and I'd have fun, but I'd always like find one game that I would like get hooked on right before it was time to go. And one of the times that game was Die Hard Trilogy. So like I spent my entire next time at Tornado Terry's just playing through that entire game. With like my nostalgia vision, not having played it in a while, I remember that game being amazing. It was full of these mind-blowing QuickTime events, which was a not common thing at the time. And, you know, like, wow, right. I have to hit either left, right, or A in the right sequence really quickly. Weird. But it was also basically just like a beat-em-up, like, side-scrolling type of like co-op game that you'd see, like Ninja Turtles or X-Men or any of those, The Simpsons. Weird. Toby, I feel like you're going to have more to comment on. Did you review that one with your Secret Levels review as well?
No, we haven't actually touched on that one. I believe that's the one that I have for Sega Saturn. I was looking up the price for the PlayStation version. You can get that game for about $12 on PlayStation 1.
Will that play in the PS5?
I was trying to see how much it is.
What the PS5 can do now. Can you just put like an NES cartridge in that thing? It should be able to be that backwards compatible.
Yeah, I think that'll work. See, I've got the one on Sega Saturn, but it's that one goes for about
Saturn games are more rare though, right?
So that one's a little more. Yeah, they're a little more pricey. That's why I do not collect for Saturn anymore. I played it a little bit, and it, like you said, it's got like some. If I remember correctly, my controller I have isn't very good, and again, pricey for controllers and crap. So I didn't get to play it very far, but yeah, I feel like you do some quick time stuff in it. There was an arcade machine that I used to play more than.
Yeah, I only ever played it on the arcade
one, and I want to say it was just called. Well, see, there was one that's called Die Hard Trilogy, and then there's one called Die Hard Arcade, and I can't remember which is which. But the one that's like a rail shooter where you know people are just jumping out and you shoot them and
so
stuff.
I didn't play that one very much.
I remember
Mine
playing
wasn't
the
a rail
most.
shooter. It was like you walked around and punched people.
See, I think I played the rail shooter. That's somewhere before. And for some reason, I thought I had it like on a modded PlayStation or something where I was playing it at home.
There might have been a let's see. I think there might have been some home ports of arcade.
I remember being in a car at one point, like in like the second level or something, shooting guys.
So it did come out on Sega Saturn, PlayStation 2, and it was re-released on the PlayStation Network in 2012. So I bet that's not there anymore. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's you. I'm looking. You know what? That one's pretty. Maybe that's the one we're thinking of that you run around. Maybe that's the one I have, because that one doesn't look like a rail shooter either. Like, yeah, this one looks like the beat 'em up. So the arcade one may have been the one.
Well, this podcast is over now. Thank you very much for joining us today. Toby's brain is fried.
Yeah, this is just turning into Toby Google's video games. This will officially be the research show for the Secret Levels review of Die Hard.
Hey, I will say that the as we were talking though, I started remembering more stuff about the NES game. Like, you do have to go find the detonator. Like, there's some really good cutscenes where you can actually. That's one of the problems I always have with NES is like the cutscenes are fine, but usually like the pictures they use are just blown out, pixelated, and terrible.
You don't have a lot of room. There's only a few,
yeah, but there's some good 8-bit artists back then, and like this is one of those games where I feel like it looks pretty good. Like I want to say Total Recall, the cutscenes looked good, and Die Hard looked pretty good. So if you get a chance, you need to just look up Die Hard NES video game pictures and see, because you'll be like, okay, those aren't too bad. Like, it shows the building blowing up and everything.
And again, I wasn't trying to say you can't do good 8-bit art, but like I definitely think that it has a finite capacity of what it can be. I mean,
I pixelated you a shirt of Bender on Grand Theft Auto 5. Come on, Miles.
All right, yeah, that's true. I have no counter argument for that. What can I say? So there's always talks. It's constantly circulating. Die Hard 6. I don't think that Bruce Willis wants to do it, but you never say never. If tomorrow we heard that Die Hard 6 was in production, we excited about it? We not excited about it? What's your thoughts on that? Toby, you go first, sir.
If it's called Die Hard, Please Kill the Franchise, I'd probably be like, all right, cool. No, I mean, it's always nostalgic to be like, all right, one more, just one, and we all bitch about it and stuff, but we'd watch it in a heartbeat. It doesn't matter what franchise is like.
Even bad movies usually get one. James Bond won't die. A lot of them get more than one.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many like Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger movies that they're so terrible, and I'll keep watching. Wrong Turn.
Are terrible because I haven't seen one yet. No, the remake of Friday the 13th and the remakes I'm not a fan of either, but I love those series.
Right. Yeah, I feel like it's if there's a good fan base for it, so they're gonna. How many Lethal Weapons are there? I wasn't a big Lethal Weapon fan, but there's 4 or 5.
The fifth one had Jet Li in it, didn't it? Or was that
I thought the fourth one had Jet Li in it.
If they make one more, like everyone would be like, okay, I'll watch it because I've seen the other 5. Or
they should just make it 6, like, regardless if there's been a 5th
whatever.
One. Like at this point, people they're not gonna know. Like
they skip it. They reference stuff that happened in the one that wasn't
Community
there.
episode where they reference all the flashbacks that you didn't actually see.
100%.
If they make a Die Hard 6, it's got to be I took too much Viagra over 4 hours ago, and now it's got to die hard.
Awkward.
It's an old folks home. I mean, come on.
Hey, Bruce Willis is getting up there, and also Bruce Willis has a reputation for not being the easiest guy in the world to work with. He's been known to be quite the diva on set, and actually, one of the things we've talked a lot about the Christmas debate, and we haven't had anybody on the show who, other than our weak, representing of patty cakes, which he's wrong, but there is one person who is pretty important to the franchise that has blatantly and publicly stated that it is not a Christmas movie, and that's Bruce Willis himself, who actually has quoted, and I think this pretty much paints a picture of who Bruce Willis is as a person. His quote is, "Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Die Hard is a fucking Bruce Willis movie."
That's pretty Bruce Willis of him to say.
That's the end of that. 100%. That was literally what he was quoted as saying.
Well, I would only counter that by saying, "Who do you make movies for?"
Christmas.
I was thinking of the fans, and if the fans say it's a Christmas movie, then who am I to judge?
Bruce Willis makes movies for Bruce Willis.
He just really likes seeing himself
not making
on
them
screen.
for anyone else.
That's 100% it. He's like, man, my head's so awesome. I wish I could see it 40 or 50 times larger than it actually is. I don't know how big movie screens are. Is that accurate? 40 or 50 times?
I mean, you heard my math earlier. I'm not going to try.
Yeah, show us your geography skills. See if we can.
Yeah.
I hate these jokes so much.
It makes Richie's head hurt sometimes. I know I do.
Well, there's one thing that you haven't talked about at all.
I have not talked about the parodies.
Everyone now, of course, there's always the parody of being in the vents and stuff and crawling around and making the dumb joke I made earlier. But like Workaholics has got a parody of them episode. Crawling through. Yeah. Oh, that's such a good episode too. I mean, I want to even say like Simpsons have parodied.
I think the Bob's Burger parody is my favorite when they're trying to do Gene wants to do a Die Hard musical. Oh. They also want to do a Working Girl musical. So they combine the two musicals together. And the way they do like the Hans Gruber death scene is just really, really cool, where they make it look like Gene's falling out of the skyscraper in place. And like, I don't know, they did that one. I think the Cleveland Show did Die Hard, if I remember correctly.
I know for sure The Simpsons had a McBain parody of Die Hard because I used it for the picture for this podcast.
It's something it's pop culture now too. Like it's not just like a movie and people like it. It's a pop culture thing that's like it's got a couple of like really like quotable lines. The yippee-ki-yay, people.
John,
I feel like some of the quotes from this movie are up there with like Luke, I am your father. Quote, those kind of quotes.
That's never been said on a Star Wars
I am your
film,
father.
So I don't even know what you're talking about right now. No, I am your daddy is the quote.
Close enough. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it is one of those movies that it's got some really memorable stuff from it. Like you remember the glass, you remember like some of the weird
You remember
stuff
the
that's not
fact
in
that
other
he's
movies.
a cop getting off an airplane,
but
he's not on duty, but he's able to carry his gun on an airplane. And then the next scene, he's smoking inside the airport. You remember those things.
Well, you also remember that the dad from Family Matters is helping him out along the way. Like that, like his role in that is small, but like also very memorable, and really, I think, helps us like out a lot in terms of taking a little bit of the tension away at times when we see Bruce Willis having these walkie-talkie conversations. Some of them, there's a little bit of humor. I mean, that's where the yippee-ki-yay thing came from originally. That helps, you know, let us breathe for a second before we get into like another huge machine gun fight.
And that was his big break too, like movie wise. If you like, again, the Netflix series talks about that, where he was thinking of
quitting.
Yeah, he was absolutely thinking of quitting, and then he got that role, and it was a big deal. So there's a lot of,
and he's great in it too. I mean, I love like the just little like sub plot they do where he hasn't been on patrol because he had the shooting incident, and he's been
carries over well to this day and age.
Well, yeah, but at the time, I think for the purpose of this film and like being like him and John McClane are both cops, they're able to figure that out. Apparently, whenever they actually recorded those lines, they never actually met or worked together at all until the scene where they actually did meet. Largely due to Bruce Willis's insane schedule. He was on a TV show, I believe it was Moonlighting, whenever he was shooting Die Hard.
But that also makes it cool that they didn't see each other until you actually see them seeing each other. So
100%. Yeah. It kind of makes the character, it's kind of like the scene we talked about earlier with him and Hans meeting each other for the first time. It gave that extra edge to the performance. But yeah, 100%, Toby, I agree with you. It's parodied, it's referenced. I think that you could even make the argument that and I know we've been kind of joking about it, and I think we all do firmly believe it's a Christmas movie, but I think we are being a little bit, we're being jerks about it. Let's be real. But the truth is, I think that the Die Hard Christmas debate is in some ways superseded Die Hard itself. Like even people that haven't seen Die Hard are aware of Die Hard because of the annual, memes and debate that occurs online.
They have an advent calendar of Hans Gruber falling down.
I saw that. How cool!
How can you not call it a freaking Christmas movie?
You pull like a piece of chocolate out or whatever every day, and it makes them fall a little bit further down. I saw that online, and I was like, "Oh my god, this Target marketing is going to be the death of me."
I won't lie. I've been doing a lot of shopping at Target in the last month or so, and I have to go there all the time now. Screw you, Target.
There goes that sponsorship.
Hit your mark.
So we've talked a lot about Die Hard, movie that we all love. I think all of us watch it around Christmas, or at least that's always my go-to. I don't always watch the sequels. I usually watch the second, the third. I never watch the fifth and the fourth one. I agree. If I need like a patriotism boost, I'll watch it around the fourth. But all in all, I do think that it's made a huge impact on our culture, our society in general, on other movies. And it defined what being an action star, or redefined, I should say, what being an action star was, because prior to that, I mean, it was, again, Arnold Schwarzenegger, it was Sylvester Stallone, it was Jesse the Body Ventura and Hulk Hogan. It was all these large men beyond, believable stature, doing these incredibly strong feats and having bullets essentially bounce off of them, it seemed. And now this movie opened the door for that everyday guy, in most cases, because it's still the 80s. In the 2000s, sometimes it's an everyday lady just coming in to save the day and really make an impact. Toby, is there anything else in general that you want to talk about Die Hard before we call it a day?
I was just curious, which one is your favorite? Out of all of them, I think one is going to be the special place. I feel like it's the I think it's the most interesting one. But I think between one
the
and
third
three
one
is my favorite
first,
too.
Like 3/4 of it is amazing, and at a certain point, the third one stops having the same amount. Like I get a little bit bored about 3/4 of the way through the third one. I love the Simon Says aspect of it. I think that's a lot of fun. Fair. I love Sam Jackson being in it. That's really cool. I love that that's actually the first time we get to see John McClane, the New York cop in New York City. So he's actually on his home turf for once, which is kind of cool. But realistically, the first one is a damn near perfect action movie. I really can't think of any way that I could tweak that. It never gets slow or boring, but it's also just not nonstop action. Like you actually do have character development. I didn't even mention there's a whole list of A-list actors that were in like contention to play John McClane. And even like more interesting, I found there is a huge name of A-list actresses that were in line to play Holly. And that was actually a very coveted role by a lot of A-list Hollywood women, because in that era, in the 80s, being a lead in an action woman or in an action film as a woman meant that you were going to be a damsel in distress and nothing else. But Holly was unique. Holly McClane was unique that she was an independent, strong woman in the 80s who was actually like leaving her husband to be on her own. And the dynamic between those characters was far, far different than what you would see in like Commando or The Terminator.
Well, and she kind of was like standing toe to toe with Hans in a lot of scenes too, like trying to outsmart him and not letting him know about her husband and her kids and everything, and just jerk news reporters that kind of give that one away, or jerk fellow employees. So like she's standing toe to toe with like the smartest guy in the room, which is saying something.
And standing toe to toe on her own, not like standing there as a side piece to John, but like he's not even in the picture at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
She's unarmed, but she's armed with intelligence. Ba-bam.
And it was actually Bruce Willis that recommended the actress that ended up getting the role. He had worked with her before and was fond of her work. Though I will be honest, when I first read that, I immediately got a little sus about old Bruce Willis, that perhaps he was more concerned that this was supposed to be his big break, and he didn't want to be overshadowed by an A-list Hollywood actress stealing the credit for the role, meaning, or for the film, meaning that he was way more inclined to recommend somebody that would be more of an unknown, even if he did believe her to, going to be doing a good job or not. And the actress in question, I really should have looked up her name. I regret not doing that now. But she definitely,
Bonnie, I always forget her last name.
It's Bonnie Bedelia.
Yep.
Is her name. And she did a fantastic job in the role. I'm glad that she got the part. But again, there was a part of me that just wondered, like, was that Bruce Willis protecting, looking out for number one when he recognized this woman whose name I've never heard of otherwise? Yeah.
Well, he wasn't a big action star yet at this point. So maybe he had like an ounce of goodness in him still at this time. He was just helping a friend out.
Maybe.
I'm going to take the other side of it. Miles is speculating here, people.
I'm heavily speculating. Yes. Absolutely. And on that, Richie, is there anything else that you either want to speculate about or just want to talk about in general about Die Hard before we get out of here?
Yeah, so I only own the first one on DVD, so I put that in my PS4 to watch it, and it has not. The DVD doesn't age very well. The scene where everyone's in Holly's office when Bruce Willis first gets to the office there, if you watch the background, it's supposed to be like the LA city. None of the lights are moving in the background where it's supposed to be like cars, which I know you're like, well, there's a lot of traffic. But in this day and age with like high quality televisions, totally looks like a painted backdrop, and it's totally easy to spot now. And it just stole my attention through the entire scene where they're, go ahead and show them the watch. Go ahead. Hey, it's a Rolex. Hey. Like it stole the scene in that one. So like, it was just such an eyesore. I couldn't help it. Besides that, they don't check John McClane through security at all. They just let him walk through. Again, he's carrying a fucking
cop.
gun.
Come on.
He's carrying a gun. Like he's just like, no one has to see my badge anywhere. I just have to show my gun and go, hey, I'm a cop. It's the 80s. It's cool.
This is how cops hold their guns.
Make fist with your toes. But I mean, like Toby said, this has a lot of iconic lines. It has stuff kind of along the lines for our usual show, The Simpsons, that you still use in everyday life. I mean, how many times have you guys said yippee-ki-yay variation on the last word throughout your life in different scenarios? It's a fun thing to watch this time of the year. My dad always told me about the time he rented a VCR to rent Die Hard so he could watch it. He didn't see it in theaters. We paid, I think, like $40 to rent like a VCR and to watch this movie. And he said, the best review I can give this movie is after I watched this movie, I wanted to go out and kill somebody. And I thought that was the weirdest thing to say. The absolute weirdest thing to say after you watch the movie. But that just goes into the whole like everyday Joe that's having to step up and be the hero. And he was like, yeah, I just wanted to go out and kill somebody.
So instead of a 5-star rating, he gave it a 5 to life rating.
Yeah. So I guess that's the nicest thing I can say about the movie.
That's pretty good.
I don't really have much else to say about it. Movie I absolutely love. I do consider it a Christmas movie, but one last note on that debate as well. I think one of the things about that is that a lot of the times a Christmas movie can be an individual thing. Like you could have a movie that really doesn't have anything to do with Christmas except for the fact that it reminds you about Christmas. So if Die Hard is one of those movies that brings you Christmas joy, good for you. And if you're a Grinch and you hate Christmas, then that's fine. I'm glad you still have a reason to enjoy Die Hard. It can be for all of us on all sides of the Christmas spectrum. So that's fun. But also, thank you so much, Toby, for joining us for the inaugural Best Darn Everything. So glad that you are here. Very quickly, tell everyone where you can be found on the interweb.
I got other shows that I do. The Secret Levels podcast. I have the Secret Transmission podcast, which is a conspiracy show. Secret Levels is the retro video game podcast. I'm also a part of the Selling Out show. Now I'm the third seat on that. I don't have to do any work, so I just talk. But we just talk about being old. Yeah. But you can find all my projects at badsecretmedia.com. It's just one place, one-stop shop for it all. Or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Toby.
Hey, Richie, we're online. Why don't you tell everybody where?
Well, you can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off pretty much on every social media platform out there, including this very own Get Vocal. Follow him on here for sure so you can see all of our upcoming shows. You can follow me at @thewiz_kid23. Our normal show, Best Darn Diddly, you can follow at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. But this is our new platform. This is now Best Darn Everything. This week it's been Die Hard. Who knows what it'll be next week? Probably the first episode of season 11 of The Simpsons. But who knows?
It could be anything. No, I do want to reiterate that very much. Best Darn Everything is an addition to, not a replacement for, our Simpsons podcast, Best Darn Diddly. We will still be going through each and every episode of The Simpsons. We're now just going to be alternating 1 week of The Simpsons and 1 week of something random like this. Our podcasting therapist told us it'd be good to have some variety in our life. So that's thanks for the tip, Toby.
Just the tip, though.
But we will, in fact, be back next week for another episode of Best Darn Diddly, the first episode of season 11, and we'll be reviewing the episode of The Simpsons, Beyond Blunderdome.
And remember, pineapple does go on pizza.
And until next time, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.